So now I can speak into the microphone?
Yeah, you're descending.
So that's on.
Yes.
If you are attending this meeting by conference call and wish to provide public comment, please virtually raise your hand by pressing *9 on your telephone. If you virtually raised your hand, you will receive a notification that you have been unmuted when it is your turn to speak for 2 minutes. If you are calling in and watching YouTube, please turn down your volume to limit any feedback when you speak. If you are attending the meeting via YouTube, please submit public comments in the live chat and let us know you want your comments read by writing public comment prior to your message. If you wish for us to state your name, please introduce yourself as we are not reading usernames. If you submitted comments prior to the meeting by email or letter, it has been forwarded to the budget office and published to our website.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for your patience. This is Christine Ridge, City Manager for your City of Santa Ana, and thank you so much for joining us for this community meeting. I want to thank Comlink for your leadership in keeping our community well informed. This is definitely a new format for us, but something that will most likely be repeated for public meetings in the foreseeable future. I know the meeting tonight is about our budget, but I know what is on most of our minds is the pandemic impacting our country. So I want to assure you that the city has taken multiple actions and continues to do so to protect the public health and welfare while providing all essential government services as allowed for by the governor's executive order. We have also engaged in a very robust public information campaign, including featured videos of our mayor addressing the public during this time. You will find on our website, santaana.org/COVID-19, a lot of information for residents, for local businesses, resource referrals, and links to multiple public health agencies. Of course, the most important message is to maintain social distancing in all of your interactions and wash your hands frequently. Currently, in our county, there are 256 positive cases of COVID-19. The stats on these cases are updated daily and can be found on the Orange County Healthcare Agency's website, which is also featured as a link on our website. And starting tomorrow, after multiple requests from cities, this county website will now show a breakdown of the positive cases by city. So regarding tonight's budget meeting, in light of all of the craziness that surround us, a critically important task for your local government is the development of a fiscally sound budget that addresses the community needs. Our new budget year begins on July 1st, and our budget team, led by Catherine Downs, our finance director, has been diligently working on this task. I want to thank the entire team of Waldo Barella, Liz Rubio, Hannon Sawala for your work efforts, and I know there are more to come over the next few months. The presentation will include an overview of the general fund, information on Measure X, addressing homeless efforts, and an overview of our key revenue streams. With the pandemic, we know for certain that many of our revenue streams related to economic activity will be lower than originally projected. And though very preliminary, the budget team has already estimated these impacts in the presentation. And just so you know, after the presentation, staff will be available to answer any questions, and we can repeat those instructions probably one more time when we get to that point. But at this time, I would like to turn the presentation over to our Finance Director, Catherine Downs.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you to everyone who's listening this evening, and thank you for your patience. We appreciate it. This is new technology for us, and we hope that it works well for future meetings. So thank you for bearing with us. The general fund is the general fund is the primary operating budget of the city. This is where we deposit our unrestricted tax revenue, such as sales tax and property tax, and where we pay for many essential services such as public safety and park maintenance. Our primary sources of revenue are sales tax and property tax. Combined, they account for 58% of the general fund budget. Our general fund expenditures are displayed here in two ways, by function or department, and by type of expenditure. On the left, you can see that public safety is more than half of our budget. On the right, when we look at how the money is spent, more than half pays for employees who provide service to the public. The contractual spending includes fire protection provided by Orange County Fire Authority. This is a summary of our current general fund budget. We have included adjustments made since the budget was adopted in June. Beginning balance plus revenues minus expenditures equals ending balance. The City Council has a policy to keep money on hand in an operating reserve and economic uncertainty reserve. When comparing the ending balance to the reserve requirements, we have an estimated $9 million available for one-time spending. The coronavirus pandemic is impacting everyone financially, including the city. We don't have much data yet, but if we assume the impact continues until September, we could lose $20 million of revenue or more. The lost revenue will impact city services. The question is, by how much? As we receive more information, we can provide better estimates to the City Council and the public. Let's talk about Measure X next, one of our most important sources of revenue. Measure X is the local 1.5% sales tax approved by voters in November 2018. When added to the base sales tax rate of 7.75% in Orange County, we have an effective rate of 9.25% in Santa Ana. That rate will decrease to 8.75% in 2029 and sunset in 2039. So far, we have collected $47.2 million of Measure X revenue for 9 months of activity. You probably want to know how Measure X is improving the quality of life for our residents. These spending categories are based directly on the original ballot language. Prior to Measure X, the city's costs to provide service increased faster than our revenue. 46% of the revenue is used to preserve the existing level of service and to provide new services such as a bus shelter maintenance program. If Measure X had not passed, the city would have had to decrease service to the public to balance the budget. One of the city's top priorities is addressing homelessness. Over the last 2 years, our homeless population has increased by 77%. Last year, a little more than half of the population were housed in a shelter. The city spends a significant amount of money addressing homelessness. Most is spent for police and fire response. We also spend money to shelter the homeless and to clean up the city's right-of-way. The city has developed a 4-step action plan that includes cleaning, outreach, housing, and communication. Residents can use the My Santa Ana app to report issues, and the city can let the homeless know where they can obtain help. Our quality of life team includes multiple city departments working together to address this very important need in Santa Ana. Another top priority for the city is maintaining the streets in good condition. Our Public Works Department maintains over 1,000 miles of street lanes. Roughly half are primary roadways, such as Bristol Street, and the other half are local neighborhood streets. A newly constructed street may last up to 40 years with proper maintenance. We have estimated our cost to maintain the pavement is $20 million per year. It costs less to maintain a street in good condition than it does to reconstruct a street in poor condition. We have streets in good condition and those in poor condition all over the city. The Pavement Condition Index is like a grading system. If you are interested in seeing the condition of your street, you can find these detailed maps on the city's website. Just search for Pavement Condition Index in the search bar on the main page. To maintain an average Pavement Condition Index rating of 76, we need to spend $20 million per year, but we only have $12.9 million available each year. If we don't find new revenue to maintain the streets, the condition of the pavement could decrease from a rating of 76 to 66 over the next several years. We were fortunate to identify $2.5 million of one-time funding last year to fix 4 additional streets, but we cannot count on finding one-time funding every year. Next, I would like to provide an overview of our key revenues. The Santa Ana sales tax rate of 9.25% includes 1% that has always gone to the city. This is the Bradley Burns allocation, and the 1.5% authorized by Measure X. The state and county receive most of the sales tax generated in the city. We have some examples on the right of this slide to show what is subject to sales tax and what is not. For each $1 of property tax you pay, the city only receives 19 cents. Most of your property tax goes towards education and county-wide services. When someone visits Santa Ana and stays in a hotel, they will pay a hotel visitor's tax of 11% of their room charge. We collect almost $10 million per year. Our top 10 hotels supply most of that revenue. Santa Ana's 11% hotel visitors tax rate is a bargain compared to some of our neighboring cities. Now that we have reviewed some of our revenues and expenditures, let's take a look at our 10-year outlook. We use this tool to help plan for the future and keep our budget in balance. This chart is from the budget document published last year. The 10-year outlook will be updated this year with new information. For example, we know that employee pension costs and our contract with Orange County Fire will continue to increase. The City Council added funding for another 18 police officers in December. There will be a little relief in 5 years when we pay off the debt for our police building. In 2029, our Measure X revenue will decrease. Some of our ideas to keep the budget in balance will be presented to the City Council over the next couple of months. We are working on a plan to decrease the cost of our employee pension plan. We're hoping to open our 3rd jail module later this year to generate more revenue. The Chamber of Commerce would like us to restructure the business tax and make Santa Ana more business friendly. And it's important to modernize our operations to deliver public service more efficiently. Thank you for listening to this presentation. It is posted on the city's website, so you can refer to each slide at your leisure. On the main page, just scroll down to read more about the city's budget. Now we want to hear from you. We'll answer some questions live right now. And if we don't get to you tonight, please send us your comments and questions via email. And the email address is listed here, budgetoffice@santa-ana.org. And right now, we'll have Daniel Soto make an announcement to give you some instructions.
If you are attending this meeting by conference call and wish to provide public comment, please virtually raise your hand by pressing star 9 on your telephone. If you virtually raised your hand, you will receive a notification that you have been unmuted when it is your turn to speak for 2 minutes. If you are calling in and watching YouTube, please turn down your volume to limit any feedback when you speak. If you are attending the meeting via YouTube, please submit public comments in the live chat and let us know you want your comments read by writing public comment. You can also email us your comments at budgetoffice@santa-ana.org. If you submitted comments prior to the meeting by email or letter, it has been forwarded to the budget office and published on our website. Caller 412, your line is unmuted.
Go ahead, caller.
Okay, we're going to try a different caller.
Caller 942.
Yes,
Oh, please.
this is George Collins. This is George Collins, Comlink board member, Greater Santa Ana. My question is in the budget, and I didn't hear it directly addressed, is with the large number of undocumented workers and homeless that we're currently having in the city and the coronavirus, how are you forecasting funds from the budget to cover the issues that are going to be coming up with the police department having to wear personal protective gear and things like that in case of homeless interactions or other interactions? That's my question.
Thank you for your question.
Hi, George. This is Christine Ridge. We are tapping into outside resources that have been made available in light of the pandemic. That includes potential FEMA reimbursement, particularly for PPE that we would need for our police officers. We also have received an additional $1.3 million that we can use to help address the homeless and those individuals that are experiencing symptoms or actually test positive. So there are a number of outside resources that weren't mentioned in this budget presentation that we're aggressively seeking to address just that very issue. Thank you.
Caller 489, your line is unmuted.
Yes, this is Carl Benninger, Vice President of Comlink. First of all, I want to thank the city for putting this together. On Measure X, there's a lot of concern that the first large amount of money, and I was told $42 million, I don't know if that's correct or not, was spent without the Measure X committee oversight on it. I know they were going to ask for an audit to see where that went, so we do have transparency. And I just wonder if there's any comment on that, number one. And number two, this oversight, the Measure X was also supposed to be spent on trees and mediums and improving the overlook of the city. Is any of that going to that purpose? Thank you.
Thank you for calling, Carl. The Measure X committee has been meeting throughout the last, since May, I believe. The committee is set to develop their annual report to the city council with recommendations on the budget. And of course, each committee member is free to make their comments to city council and specifically speak with the council member that appointed them to the committee. There was an audit of Measure X money for year one, and year one was April through June of 2019. It was effective for 1 quarter of our last fiscal year. The audit was clean, and the audit report is available on the city's website. The Measure X money is being spent, much of it, on the category.
Next question, is there any, how much is being spent on mediums and trees out of Measure X funds?
I'd have to look at that specifically. We don't have that information available with us, but there was some money added to the budget for that purpose. And Carl, I'll be happy to get back to you with that.
Would you please? I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you.
Are there any other callers on the conference call line that would like to speak? If yes, please indicate so by dialing *9.
We're going to take some calls or some questions from YouTube. So the first question is from Oswaldo Farias, and the question is, can you explain what you mean by opening a third jail module?
Daisy, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that question, please?
Yes. Can you explain what you mean by opening a third jail module?
Yes, our police facility, the jail facility specifically, has 3 modules. To date, we have only had the staffing to open 2 modules. We have federal contracts to fill those modules with inmates, and we are currently recruiting to try to find additional correctional officers so that we can open up that 3rd module and increase our revenue stream via those federal contracts.
Next question from Dulce. The question is, what was this past year's cannabis revenue spent on?
Okay, thank you for that question. 2/3 of the cannabis tax revenue is set aside for youth programming and enforcement. So half of the 2/3, 1/3, if you will, went to youth programming, and 1/3 to enforcement, which includes police services and code enforcement. The other 1/3 that was not set aside is used for general fund purposes, which include public safety and park maintenance and street maintenance.
Next question is from Tim Johnson. The question is, you mentioned that you are in the process of determining the reduction in revenue based on the current economic and health crisis. What was the expected reduction for fiscal year 1920 and for fiscal year 2021?
I'm hesitant to provide too much information because, quite honestly, it's really too soon for us to tell. But right now, our preliminary estimates say that we could be impacted in the current fiscal year by as much as $10 million, and in the next fiscal year by $20 million or more. These are very, very preliminary estimates. We are getting more information every single day, and as we do, we can refine those estimates for the city council. We hope to have much better information for them when they're looking at the budget in May.
Thank you. Next question is from Danny Vega. Were Measure X dollars used in giving the police raises?
The police union bargained with the city to get some compensation increases to maintain the marketability of us being able to attract police officers to the city. We want to remain competitive so that we are able to attract the most competent and most qualified peace officers for service to the community. That negotiation took place a while back, and with everything in the general fund, our costs increase each year. So our fire contract increases each year, our employee compensation increases each year, many of our other contracts increase each year, and the police compensation is the same.
Thank you. Next question. Is the jail still running on a deficit?
If you include the debt service, yes, the jail is running at a deficit. That debt service will be paid off in 5 years. When the debt service goes away, the jail will no longer be running at a deficit. If we're able to open up that third module this next year, that will greatly help the situation.
Next question is from Dulce. The question is, the Youth Commission has been presenting a plan for the youth cannabis money, but staff has been taking a while to finalize the youth needs in a plan. Is there a deadline for those monies to be spent by?
The budget is adopted for a 12-month period that began July 1st and ends June 30th. If that cannabis money is not spent for those youth programs by June 30th, we do have the ability to ask City Council to roll that budget money over into the next year. The bottom line is the money has already been set aside. It's set aside in a different fund, and so even if that money is not spent in this year, that money will remain in the fund for that purpose. And like I said, hopefully we can get the City Council to approve what we call a continuing appropriation to roll that budget over into the next year so that we can spend it.
Thank you. Next question is from Carl. The question is, do you see any help from the large bailout package from the federal government?
Yes, there's very little information right now, but we do have some. And when I say very little information, I mean very little detailed information. There's some broad information that was released yesterday and today on the topic, and we have been analyzing it. We do expect that Santa Ana is going to receive some of that federal stimulus package. We just don't know exactly how much yet. And we do know that some of the money that we'll have access to will need to be applied for, meaning that it will be competitive and on a reimbursement basis.
Thank you. Next public comment is from Tim Johnson. The question is, if there is an estimated $10 million reduction for current fiscal year and $20 million for next year comes true, will the city be able to provide the same level of services as currently provided without reserves?
That is very unlikely.
Okay. Next question is from Roberto. The question is, how is COVID-19 impacting CalPERS?
CalPERS has reported out into the public that they have taken a significant loss on their investment portfolio. They still have time to recover some of that loss, and prior to taking that loss, they had already made significant gains during the current fiscal year. The bottom line is, it is very likely that CalPERS investments will have sustained a net loss at the end of this fiscal year. Whatever that net loss is, will be used to calculate our pension contributions for fiscal year 21-22, which starts 15 months from now. So it's something that we need to keep in mind. And we're certainly working through some solutions for that. We have some ideas, but it doesn't pose an immediate problem for this particular budget cycle. There's always at least a 1-year lag between CalPERS investment results and how it impacts our contributions.
We don't have any more YouTube comments at this time. If there's anyone that would like to make a comment over the phone, you can please dial *9 to request to unmute your line. But before we do that, we did just receive one more public comment from Dulce. The comment is there a process for the city to start a youth strategic plan that has a needs assessment and evaluation of current programs?
This is Christine Ridge. I know that we do have a plan to do a Masters Park strategic plan. We also do strategic planning for all areas of the city. I'm not aware of a strategic plan that's geared just specifically for youth, other than the involvement of the Youth Commission to assist in the programming and making recommendations. And if I could comment on back to the question about not being able to program some of the desirable youth activities, one of the challenges that we're obviously facing right now is we have all of our community centers closed. We have the library closed, we have the zoo closed, so there is going to be a delay and an impact definitely in the youth programs.
There's another public comment from Tim Johnson. The comment is, Director Downs, I would just like to say thank you for your straightforward answers to questions. Thank you.
While we might be waiting for another comment, I'd like to make an announcement for everybody who's listening. The City of Santa Ana will be using this same virtual meeting format for our next Planning Commission meeting. The good news is we may have a few bugs worked out by then. It's scheduled for Monday, March 30th at 5:30 p.m. For more information about this meeting, please visit the Planning Commission page on the city's website at santaana.org or call the Planning Division's general line at 714-647-5804.
Caller 412, your line is unmuted.
Oh, hi. This is Keith Carpenter. Yeah, a couple things. Technical issues. I do not know how to, on my YouTube channel here, it says chat is disabled for this live stream, so that's kind of a bummer. I just emailed a couple questions to you guys, and unfortunately I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but one that's concerning me at this present time is we just spent some money from the Measure X on security guards for the parks, and in light of the recent murder at Santiago, is anybody looking into that vendor's qualifications a little more seriously, and is there any consequences for that vendor, given that we have had a murder?
This is Christine. One of the things that we are doing is, in light of the parks remaining open and school closures and the opportunity for people to use the open space, we are going to add and supplement additional park security. However, to blame the park security for that murder, which is very unfortunate and tragic, it really doesn't, the responsibility does not lay with the park security.
And I'm not trying to place blame on anybody, but the point was to make the park safer with this money. Quite frankly, it seems that it has failed given this incident. So again, I'm just asking: is anybody looking into this? Is it a viable use of the money? Is it well spent doing this? Is the vendor the best choice? Those type of things.
We have, when we first added the park security, one of the questions from council was they wanted us to do a follow-up and let them know what the impact has been from the park security guards. And that was presented at the last city council meeting. So if you want to learn, how we deployed and how many instances of engagement they had and how many times they did have to reach out to the police, you can view that on the city council's website from their last meeting. And once again, in regards to the murder, the actual location of the murder was out towards Main Street.
There's another comment on YouTube. This is from Bulmaro Vicente. The question is, if we have any questions related to budget line items, can we follow up with the budget office? And the second question, also from Bulmaro, is also a clarification. The city hired an additional 18 officers since last year with Measure X funds. Is that correct?
Thank you. Yes, you can ask us any of your budget questions using that email address of budgetoffice@santaana.org. And I promise we will respond to every single one of them. Even if it's just a comment, we'll respond to let you know that we did receive it. But we're happy to answer your questions in that format. The City Council authorized funding for 18 additional officers back in December. This was after they had received a report from the Chief of Police that he had met a hiring goal of hiring 50 police officers during 2019. So he has a desire to have more police officers out on the street serving the community. And so the city council, after seeing that he met his goal, went ahead and authorized an additional 18 positions. Now, those officers haven't necessarily been hired yet because that was just in December, and the city's hiring process for qualified police officers does take some time. And so I don't know the exact status of those 18, but I think it is very unlikely that all of them have been hired at this point.
We don't have any additional YouTube comments at this time.
Okay, we'll give you just a few more minutes to think of your questions and either post them to YouTube or to call in. We're happy to take your questions. Again, I really appreciate everybody hanging tough with us tonight, trying this new technology. Hopefully we'll get some of these bugs worked out and this will go smoother in the future. And we may actually be able to use this technology for future meetings to make it easy for everybody to participate, even after we're past our current situation with the coronavirus.
The next comment is from Greg. He said, I would like to know if there's funding for it to start on schedule this summer as scheduled for the Bristol Street widening project.
Yes, the Bristol Street widening project is funded.
Next question from Roberto. Question is, how does the city plan on mitigating the possible loss of input from community members due to COVID-19 and moving online?
We're going to advertise as much as possible, just like you received the announcements for tonight's virtual community budget meeting. We will have information out on our budget website, and we'll send out announcements via our social media platforms to advertise the availability of the budget office email. We are very committed to collecting that information and providing it to City Council, as well as answering your questions.
Thank you, Catherine. The budget office will also be providing copies of the presentation in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese on their website, and those should be posted by the end of this week. Next question is from Dulce. The question is, Santa Ana is one of the youngest cities in the nation. Please allocate money for a youth strategic plan for Measure X money. The law prioritized youth as a focus.
Thank you. We have recorded your comment. Okay, again, I'd just like to remind everybody, please submit your comments and additional questions to the budget office at the email address budgetoffice@santaana.org. We will respond to every single email that comes into us.
We have one additional comment from Danny Vega. The question is, can you please elaborate on homeless services?
Certainly. So Catherine did present the amount that we're projected to spend this year, and it is in excess of 25 million. And we have been doing a number of things. We've added resources, both from police, both from public works, both from our parks and rec. We've engaged a number of outside contractors to assist us as well with proactive debris removal. Right now, with the pandemic, things have gotten a little bit more challenging for us. There actually is a statewide guideline that certain encampments should not be disturbed, which is impacting our ability to do aggressive enforcement in the area. But we do operate our own shelter, which has up to 200 beds. We are also the host to the county shelter and the host to the armory, which was just recently moved from the National Guard over to 2603 West 1st Street. One of the things the National Guard was activated, is going to be using their armory for food distribution, and that's why that shelter had to be relocated. But our efforts really do focus on enforcement, offering services, and reuniting individuals with family members. It has been a challenge. I think we were making a lot of progress initially, but I do believe the current situation has set us back.
All right, everyone. We really appreciate you joining us this evening, and I hope that we were able to provide some worthwhile information to you. Thank you for taking the time to care about your city's budget. We care about it too, and together we're gonna pull through this, even though we're social distancing. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your evening.